we are the top number one podcast, meaning when they open up Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, they listen to us and only us. Top one podcast for 174 fans.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. 174 people. When they log into whatever app they listen to, they only listen to us, or we are the top one that they always clicked on. You want to guess? Do you remember our first ever guest on the podcast?
Hmm. Please do not tell me. Give me a couple seconds.
Okay, first ever guest.
I'm embarrassed. I don't know this off the top of my head.
I actually didn't remember either. I had to look it up.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, let me give you a hint. He's a content creator. Well, I
Oh,
was gonna.
nice. Oop, uh, NFT Pirates.
Yep, that's him. It feels like it was forever ago, right? Because he's not putting out much videos anymore nowadays. Take a break, but yeah, he was our first guest.
Wow.
Yes, it's
Wow.
been a long time ago.
Was it
Uh,
in January or February of 2023?
it has to be February because our first ever episode was in January, and
Okay.
so I want to talk about the some statistic on our podcast because a lot of them are really incredible. Like when I use incredible in our podcast, sometimes I feel like I'm overusing them. But this personally, to me, I would have never imagined that we could have gotten this reach just in 1 year of just us two talking and having different guests on. So over the past years, you want to guess the number of episodes that we published?
I'd say on average we probably did three a month but let's count since February. So what? Three times 11, 33? 33 episodes?
We had 53 episodes last year, so we
Really?
averaged one episode a week. So definitely very very consistent. Like when I first saw it, I was like, damn, this is pretty crazy. Like is it almost rounded up perfectly to one episode a week for 52 weeks. This is from our hosting site, which also hosts many other podcasts as well. And the way that they aggregate this is they have all of their podcasts, right? Or all the podcasts that use their hosting service, including us, and they rank by average downloads per episode. And our podcast is in the top half, which means that we are better than half of their podcasts, which is very good. Does it make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. So if there's like 10,000 podcasts, we're in the top 5,000 in terms of downloads per episode. Which, to be honest, for a small community like VeVe, for just two guys talking on the internet, that's still pretty good. But what really blew my mind away is that we have rich audience from 6 continents, except for Antarctica. Maybe if somebody goes there for research or whatever, or for vacation, because I think they have hotels there apparently. Just bring us along, try to turn on the Wi-Fi, and get us there. But we're in 6 continents. You want to guess the number of countries? This is gonna blow
Uh,
your mind away.
that's let's say 80.
Okay, that's pretty close. We reach uh listeners in 78 countries.
Whoa.
Yes.
All right.
which is again insane. Really insane if you really think about it. So our top countries, I'm gonna read them all out. The United States, 50%, the UK, Germany, Canada, Belgium, France, Australia, Netherlands, New Zealand, Switzerland, Norway, Ireland, the Philippines, Sweden, Croatia, Japan, Spain, South Africa, Mexico, and many others too, which is insane. Like the fact that, I don't know, our podcast was downloaded by 43 times in, let's just say, Japan is pretty wild. Yeah.
That's fun to think on and reflect on and see that some people can enjoy what we're doing as much as we do,
Yeah.
and yeah, it means a lot.
Okay. Are you ready for some more? We are so the top city. So those are like the countries, right? The top city is, I'm not sure if I pronounced it correctly, Brussels in Belgium, followed by Scottsdale, Arizona, New York City, Chicago, and Philadelphia.
Whoa.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The people who listen to our podcast are also into comedy, business, and sport podcasts. For music, they listen to pop, rap, and rock. Those are the most popular music genre. People share our podcast a lot because 80% of the shares happen over a direct link. Direct link means like I see this podcast and I like it and I share the link with you over text message. The interviews with Dan and David were most popular for obvious reasons, right? And this is another really cool stat that like really hit home for me. We are the top 10 podcast for 364 people, fans. They call them fans. We are the top 5 podcasts for 323 fans, meaning like for 323 people, we are the top 5 in terms of downloads. Like when they go into like, you know, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we are the top 5.
Wow,
We
awesome.
Okay, this is the best one. We are the top number one podcast, meaning when they open up Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, they listen to us and only us. Top one podcast for 174 fans.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, 174 people. When they log into whatever app they listen to, they only listen to us, or we are the top one that they always clicked on when they want to get VV content or just any audio content. And the retention of a podcast is way 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 better than like a YouTube video, because for YouTube you have to actively watch it, right? And there are other suggestions, sometimes there's ads. But for podcasts, again, like going back to the reason why we love podcasts and why we wanted to do this podcast is for podcasts you can listen on your drive to work, or from work or to work, right? You can listen without any distraction, anytime, anywhere, any place, and hands free, distraction free, screen free. So the retention is pretty amazing too. Like people really stick around and listen to the end. So this is super cool to me, because when we first started, our goal was to connect with as much people as possible, to offer as much possible values as possible, and do it in a balanced way. And so if you want to talk about something that we don't know, we bring in other collectors who know. If we want to speculate about something VV related, we don't. We just bring in the co-founders, Dan and David, and I think we did that pretty well. Again, like when I mentioned to you, my personal goal with this podcast is to change behavior, right? I want to, because we both love listening to podcasts, and I just see so many benefits from it. Like the thing that got me to think, okay, we actually did it. I didn't care too much about the stats. I It really hit home for me when I saw somebody posted a photo of them listening to our interviews when they're driving to work. So they had, Apple CarPlay or whatever on, and I saw the logo of our podcast, and that shift in behavior of them usually having to go to YouTube to watch when they are at home, right? Because you cannot watch a video when you're driving, or when you are on a treadmill running or exercising. Having seen people shifting their behavior from watching YouTube to listening to us while doing other activities and consuming VV content in other ways when they could not have done it in the past with videos, really like make it all worth it for me.
Yeah, for me, it's been a more just like as a way for, it's I'm so happy and I'm grateful that other people are willing and able to tune in and listen to what we have to say and what our guests have to say. But, I think at the root of it all, it's you and I really enjoy being able to discuss some things about the about VeVe and collecting and at times Akomi and the Only token, and just get to dive a little bit deeper into those topics, because whenever we type or text or DM with other people throughout the community, like maybe on X or
Mm,
Facebook or anything like that, there are a lot of shortcomings when it comes to expressing ideas and
yeah,
the way that ideas can be received, right? Because a lot of it leaves out the tone in our voice. Some of us may not be quite as detailed or eloquent or more delicately not as able to delicately phrase things so that what our intended messages are can be conveyed to everybody so that everyone receives it the same way, right? So
Yeah.
if I say something, if I type something on the computer or on my phone and somebody else reads it, you could read it any which way, and it could be
Mm-hmm.
super difficult for everyone to interpret it the same way. But at the very least, this by us speaking about these topics, people can at least kind of get a better sense of what we mean when we say something. So
Yeah.
that makes it a little bit more relatable, a little bit more easy to digest as a consumer of content for anyone who's listening to the podcast. So I do think that does play a factor, and it can only help, right?
Yeah, and I have touched on this point earlier, which is it feels pretty lonely to be a VV collector. And this example I've used in the past, like when you collect in VV and you believe in digital collectibles and NFTs, you are definitely, maybe like the 5% or 1%. Your family might not care about what you're doing as much. Your friends will not understand it because it is totally a new concept for them. And personally, myself, I have tried getting other people try out the app, but they have other interests or they just not interested in collecting or they don't understand it. I think you are the same too, and other folks that we have talked about too. Usually, it's them by themselves. Like you go to work, you get home, you take care of your family, then you have that little time, maybe a couple hours or whatever, and you collect digitally, which is a totally new concept for many people. That's why not many understand. So it's pretty lonely, right? And the goal here is to you know have some friends. Is to when we spend time creating the podcast, we want to invite you to join us to have a discussion, a conversation, so that you can still see that there are other people who are out there in other 78 countries across 6 continents who think the same way as you do and agree on the same thing and are as passionate as you are. And that is the goal. That is the goal right there. And I think like the way the support that people have given us over the past year have proved that I think we did a pretty good job. And for those who are listening, I hope that by listening to us, um, first of all, thank you. But secondly, I think we hope that you have gained 2 new friends, and with our guests, many more new friends in this journey because it can get pretty lonely. But again, it's pretty cool to be, that 1% or that 5% who believe in something that has so much potential that many people might not realize today. But when they realize, 5 or 10 years from now, they may come back and say, "Wow, you were right." And that's what I believe in. And also, the podcast has been a great opportunity to make new friends. Like when we went to New York Comic Con and actually seeing people in real life and talking to them and share the passion or just like have a drinks or connect with new people and then bring them onto the podcast. Man, that's pretty awesome too because you go to that event. Let's just say for me, I am definitely an introvert. Like going to event by myself without knowing anybody, I will probably skip it. But then like knowing you, knowing all of our guests and recognizing people and having people recognizing us, that makes it a lot better in terms of making friends and meaningful relationships. And I really appreciate that. And that is something like that we have gotten from this podcast that I didn't really realize until that in real life event.
Yeah, there have been a lot of nice surprises between people approaching us in real life, like you said, or reaching out to us online, and just to be able to continue the conversations that we're having. Right? I
Yeah.
think I think if anything, we're using this podcast, we're starting some conversations, and other people want to chime in and share their thoughts, and I think that's the most important piece to what we're able to provide. It's that catalyst for conversations, because once we stop talking about this project and what's going on, then that's when things can kind of disappear over time. So the nice thing is that we have some people who like to continue those conversations even when we think we might be done for the time being with between you and me and maybe some guests, right? So that's been very that it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I'd be lying if I didn't say that it's made this experience much more meaningful. And just thank you to everyone who's been a part of it.
Yeah. So our plan going forward is we're gonna keep making content. We're gonna keep bringing guests. We have made so many new connections and friends over the past year that we're excited to introduce to you guys. And thank you for letting us join you on your drive to work, when you exercise, when you going for a walk, when you're cooking, cleaning the house, whatever, or so that we could all be less lonely, so we all have friends that agree on something that's so unique and have so much potential. So that's it for the podcast today. Thank you so much, guys. If you enjoyed, subscribe, and looking forward to see you next time.